Hey guys, Shawn Crosby here, Obi-Shawn. Usually we would do an authors panel over at the Rancho Cucamonga Public Library, but since we're doing everything in a virtual mode, we have brought all of our authors together today here so that we can discuss things online. Of course, as always, I have Alan Callaci with me. Say hi, Alan.
Hey, Shawn. My name's Alan. I'm from the Rancho Cucamonga Library. And Shawn and I have been doing this thing for about 12 to 13 years now. And
It's
this is
a
our
long
first time doing this virtual. Yes.
Right on. And Michael, if you would.
Yeah, sure. I've been been part of this, I guess, for the last maybe 3 or 4 years, being a part of the Rancho Cucamonga Star Wars Day, and I guess we've gone virtual this year. But I just finished my latest book is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, the junior novelization, and I did the Force Awakens junior novelization, also the Last Jedi junior novelization. I wrote Jedi Challenges, so I was a head writer for that video game. And I've been working on Star Wars Sound Journeys, which is a game for the Amazon Alexa, which is been recently released.
Okay,
Awesome.
that sounds super, super cool. We will we will talk far too long about that, I'm sure, because that sounds absolutely absolutely amazing. Right on. And we have I don't think we have had you on board before, have we?
You have 2 years ago when I had Chewing the Porgs come out.
That's right. That's right.
And now you've offended me, and here I go. That was 2 years ago, and then I was off feverishly working on the next one, which was the young adult novel Star Wars Force Collector, which I wasn't smart enough like Michael to be able to hold up like that. That would have been great. But anyway, you guys were good enough to have me on, and obviously I love the Star Wars world. I've kind of written for every age group imaginable. We got Chewing the Porgs for the kids. I've been part of the Star Wars Robot Chicken specials, which obviously are more adult. I was part of the George Lucas created Star Wars Detours, which has not been distributed yet, but we do have 3 seasons in the can. And then finally, as I said, Star Wars Force Collector, which is a young adult novel that came out last November.
Wow, cool. It's criminal to me that Detours wasn't released. The scuttlebutt being that Disney was worried that people would take too lighthearted an approach to the Star Wars property, and so they kind of wanted to sit on that for a while.
I completely agree with them. I think, the show, we're all very proud of it, but the funny thing is we did it without any involvement from Disney, and then we wrote 3 seasons, we produced 2 seasons, and then George sold the company. And at that point, you got to remember, Disney, all roads led to episode 7. That's all they cared about. And I don't blame them that they didn't want the first thing to be a cartoon, which, if you looked at it, almost looked very Disney-fied, even though they had no involvement in it. It looked kind of cutesy because that's what George wanted. So they did hit pause on that. And in my opinion, I think in that void, Star Wars Lego stepped in and kind of filled that void of comedy animation. So hopefully we will see it one day with Disney Plus or on some format, but for now it remains elusive.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I love that you guys are working on projects that are, very strictly tied into Star Wars as it exists now. And I love that you have these kind of like left field projects that are not exactly part of like the whole Skywalker saga and things like that. It's nice that you've been given a little bit of freedom to play in the sandbox of the galaxy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. As Michael and I talk all the time about it. And it's like, there is the mainstream Star Wars, and now they're looking, for the future of Star Wars. What is that? Is that, the new books that are coming out, the High Republic? Is it the Mandalorian? These are all great characters that are now being created that Michael and I are both contributing to and hoping to continue to do so. So, it's good to have these side projects because they might not always be side projects.
Yeah.
And can I mention the library carries all of these great titles that were just mentioned by Kevin and Michael too.
That's great.
That's my plug.
And well, it's a great plug. And if you haven't been to the Rancho Cucamonga Library, you need to. It's phenomenal. And I'm like I said, I'm happy to be here today. But if you haven't seen it in person, you have to go to the Star Wars event when it's live, because it's like nothing you've ever seen before.
Yeah, it's a really great celebration of all things Star Wars, and it's a great family outing for the day.
Yeah.
You know, and it's free. So
Yeah.
you can't get better than that. It's like a mini celebration. I think it's the best Star Wars mini convention in America.
I don't know. That's some pretty high praise. I just can't believe it got that big.
Well, when you show up, I know when I showed up and you have all those 501st Legionnaires, it's like, it's no joke. I felt like the Emperor when I walked out of my little car, and I was, oh my gosh, look at all of this waiting for me. It was amazing.
And the parade, you have great guests.
Fantastic guests.
Fantastic guests, right?
Nice.
And last year you guys had Daniel Logan, right? And who was he? The Ewok? The guy who played one of the
Kevin.
Ewoks?
Yeah.
Kevin, yeah.
We had Billy D. Williams one year,
Right.
which still kind of blows my mind.
Wow.
I know, right?
But one thing I wanted to mention about the library is that even though we're not doing this in person, and the library for the most part is closed to traffic, Alan, you were telling me that you can actually place an order for books and have them delivered to your car at the curb, so you can still check out materials from the library?
Yes, so right now the library is offering pickup service.
Wow.
So how it works, you can go, you can put your hold online, and then we will contact you once we have your books. And just like you were ordering a meal, you can come by, and then one of our friendly staff people will come and bring you your titles.
Cool.
Thanks.
So we'll make sure that at the end of the video you have the spelling of everybody's name so that you can order these guys' books. Alan, you sent me a bunch of questions. You want to kick us off with your questions about the Skywalker Saga?
Yeah, so we're thinking now that the Skywalker Saga has come to a conclusion, we think, right? And you guys have written extensively in that universe. So we brought a couple questions going along that line, talking about the mythology of the Skywalker Saga. I guess we'll start with the beginning of when did you see your first Star Wars film as a kid and were introduced to the Skywalkers? And what were your impressions?
Michael, you want to take this?
Yeah, I can take this. I first saw Star Wars when my father returned home from watching the space shuttle blast off. It's a Columbia space shuttle. He was an engineer. He worked for IBM, and he designed one of the pieces for the space shuttle. So he came. He saw that launch, and he came. We lived in New York, and he took a flight back, and he got home around 5 o'clock. And he decided, I was 4 years old, he decided to take me to see Star Wars in re-release. And I went and I saw that movie, and I remember sitting there. It was the first movie I ever saw, my first time in a movie theater. And I remember the images from the cantina like, they were yesterday. I completely understood those characters, those monsters. I got it. I understood what was going on. And that was my experience. And it's never left me, here I am. If you had asked me as a kid if I was, you're going to be writing the sequel trilogy to Luke Skywalker, what happens after Return of the Jedi, I would have probably said, yeah, okay, I love this so much. This is what I'm going to do. So, and it happened. I'm really, really happy.
That's awesome. I saw the original screening in '77. I was 8 years old, and my mother took me to the drive-in. And so it was even larger than life there. And I remember thinking that anybody who had a helmet on must have been a robot. And I assumed that Wookiees were just a talented species, and they just happened to get a talented one to play Chewbacca. It didn't dawn on me that any of those things might have been costumes or whatnot. But I, just like you, Michael, it blew my mind. And the funny thing is, I have a 9-year-old daughter. And so I desperately was holding on. I did not want to show her any Star Wars until she was at least the age I was when A New Hope came out. So, but then once you show one in this day and age, you have to continue. You can't hold out 3 years like we had to wait. So I remember her response to Star Wars, the 3 quotes from the 3 original movies where Star Wars was, "You should have warned me about those sand people." I remember distinctly having the same reaction, like, oh my God, when it jumps out at you. And then in Empire Strikes Back, when the Emperor showed up, she turned to me and said, well, Darth Vader is no longer the scariest character in this movie. And then what was completely shocking to me, not because I'm cold-hearted, but I didn't see it coming, was she was inconsolable in Return of the Jedi when Yoda died.
Oh.
I tried to explain he comes back as a Force ghost. She didn't want any of it. She was just bawling. So they had just as an impact on her as they did on me.
Wow.
And did she have any knowledge of Star Wars beforehand?
No. Well, here's the thing. I very well kept that secret of Empire quiet, but in this day and age, you can't avoid it because it's worked its way into the culture.
Right.
You know, we went and saw a production of Peter Pan, a live stage performance, where at some point Captain Hook said to Peter Pan, Tinkerbell never told you about your father. I am your father. And then he was like, haha, just kidding. And she turned to me, even then she was like, what was that about? And I was like, I can't tell you. One day you will know, but I can't tell you. And so eventually when it happened, she was like, oh, and so it blew her mind. But yeah, but you can't escape it. It's on My Little Pony. It's on Peter Pan. It's everywhere, even if you don't know exactly what you're seeing.
That's amazing that you were able to keep that under wraps for so long, though. I know so many parents who have failed at that.
I know. Well, I didn't let her leave the house for 8 years. But aside from that.
Yeah, I'm actually having that debate right now because my daughter's 1, and I'm wondering, do I get her any of these Star Wars books that tell little bits of the story, or do I just let her experience the movies and not the ancillary material that I'm writing? So it's
maybe if she's critical, you may not want to put anything in front of her. Just
right, exactly.
But like Chewie, when they came to me to write Chewie and the Porgs, they said, "Would you be interested in writing this children's book?" And at the time, Maisie, my daughter, was 5 years old, and I thought I knew. She had seen images because by then I think Force Awakens had come out, and like our nearby park was doing a movie outdoors, and she saw Kylo Ren, and she was like, "Meh." So I thought, well, what if this is a nice way to intro her to the Star Wars universe without anything too scary, which is why if you pick up Chewie and the Porgs, I've dedicated the book to her because I wanted that to be her entry point. A nice, fuzzy, cuddly Chewbacca and some Porgs I thought would be a good beginning for the Star Wars saga.
In case you're watching and you're wondering, Alan and Michael did switch places. It's not a weird magic trick. They're just on opposite sides. But we trust you to figure it out.
I like this place better, actually.
So when we were kids, and I was 10 when the first Star Wars movie came out, and I managed to see it at the Chinese theater, which was considered ground zero. My mom saw it opening day by accident, and she grabbed me, she dragged me there, and she said, you have to see this movie, not realizing actually that I had already read the book. The book had been out for like 6 months by then, and I had already read it and fallen in love with this thing. And so, blew my mind. And the minute we all came out of the movie as kids, we started speculating because we didn't know we were going to get more. We didn't know what was going to happen. And here we are, 40 some odd years later, we've got 9 movies under the belt, and we've seen how the Skywalker Saga ended. But back then, back in the day, when you first saw your first Star Wars movie, whether it was Star Wars or Empire or Jedi, whatever you saw first, what did you extrapolate in terms of how the Skywalker story was going to end? How did you think? Were you content to just let the filmmakers do what they were going to do, or had you planned out how things were going to go in the galaxy?
Well, Sean, before you get there, you glossed over a thing I'd like to go back to. You said your mom accidentally saw Star Wars. How do you accidentally see a movie?
So my stepfather worked as a vice president of Great Western Bank, which was up on the hill behind the Chinese theater. And so we had one car, and she'd drop him off in the morning, and she'd take me to school, and then she'd go do her thing, and then come back and pick us all up. And he had some meetings in the evening. He had to kill some time. She was there Wednesday opening day. She said there were no lines. She waltzed right in. She says, "I'm just going to go see this star movie. He can come find me when he's done." And then, to my mom's credit, she came home. She came right to my room and she said, "Come straight home from school. We're gonna go pick up your uncle," which was my stepdad's brother. He was like 2 years older than I was. I was 10. He was 12. And she's like, "We're picking you up. We're going to the movies. You need to see this movie." And it may very much have been the regret of her life, because I never let go of that movie. So, who knows? But to be fair, we saw it at the Chinese. The Sensurround speakers were still in play from 1974's earthquake. And the Star Destroyer flew overhead, and the entire theater shook along with it. And I was sold. That was it. It was all Star Wars all the time.
Well, as I said to you before, I thought everybody was robots, so clearly I wasn't the smartest kid. So to get to your question, I remember there being a lot of trivia books at the time, and I was, digesting all of them. And they would have questions like, "Who do you think Princess Leia will wind up with, Han or Luke?" And I was like, "Luke, of course, he's the nice guy, He's clearly wrong on so many different things."
But the robot thing, I totally get it, because we thought Vader was a robot too. And there was also the possibility that all the stormtroopers were robots, because so many of them existed.
That's what I thought.
Many of them died. We thought, oh, they must just be building these guys. They can't be real people. That's what a horrible death count.
That's what I thought. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for saving me, Sean. I really do appreciate that.
I think there was a fan magazine back, maybe around the time of Empire, that talked about the stormtroopers being clones, and I think that was the other side of the equation, because they talked about, I remember this as a kid, the Clone Wars, and I never made the leap between clones, as in artificial human beings, and maybe something like cologne. I never got that idea, but I had this kind of dream in my head of what the Clone Wars were, and it was this epic battle that went on for centuries, and it involved the entire galaxy, and I never thought we'd ever see that. It was always a dream to me. So the new series and what Lucas did with the prequels was a different vision than I had as a child. It wasn't a bad vision, or it was a vision I appreciate now. But I had an adventure in my own head at that time.
As kids, we were given different information that we could and couldn't trust. Like, I remember the comic book where Darth Vader is in the boardroom and he's going to choke Admiral Mahdi, I guess, and he's got a cup of coffee. So Vader is standing there. He floats a cup of coffee into his hand, and he's casually got that as he starts to strangle Admiral Mahdi. And that wasn't in the movie. It wasn't in the script. Where did this cup of coffee come from? But that was the kind of information that they kept feeding us, these weird little bits that weren't really connected to anything. And so as kids, we jumped to conclusions all the time.
But even as a kid, I remember hearing as a kid, maybe just my buddies, or maybe we heard it somewhere, about Vader became Vader by falling into a volcano. This is long before the prequels. I remember hearing that and talking about buddies way back.
That's actually in the Return of the Jedi novelization. He falls into the lava pit, the volcano or lava pit or something.
Yeah, I remember that.
Now, I didn't remember this until someone released on YouTube. There were numbers you could call, and the actors were given some dialogue to say that was teasing whether, at that point, I think it was Return of the Jedi. But I had forgotten completely about this until someone about a year or two ago released it on YouTube. Yeah, and when you heard that, I mean, you could tell, like, James Earl Jones was hired to just do his line. I think he even mispronounced Darth Vader or something like that. It was just very off the cuff. There was no real information, but it was like all you had back then before the internet. It was like I could call in and get some information about the next movie, and it really, got you very excited about it.
So the history behind those, there were 4 numbers.
Boy, 900 numbers.
Well, they were 800 numbers at the time in like 1980, because we didn't have 900 numbers yet. 900 numbers had a very different connotation by the end of the 1980s. But Craig Miller, who's one of the guys we hope to interview.
You slave Leia on that 900 number.
Well, but Carrie Fisher did one, which was really kind of awkward. And they each had this piece of dialogue that was to get you to go see the movie as if they needed to, as if this was a thing. But Craig Miller has these original tapes, and he has put them online. That's probably where you saw them. And he's got outtakes as well, where Harrison Ford's being curmudgeonly, and he's like, I don't want to say this. And Mark Hamill is very earnestly making sure he pronounces Tatooine right, which is funny. I don't know if we ever actually covered the question I think we had asked, which was, how did you think the saga was going to end? But then we never saw Disney coming.
I just wanted to say about the Clone Wars, or the when we think about the saga, I think one of the great things about the first movie is that Alec Guinness, Obi-Shawn, right, Obi-Wan, he completely sells that story. That dialogue, when he's talking about Luke's father and he's talking about who Luke is and who the Jedi are and what the dark times are, if he didn't perform it like that to give it such authenticity and believability, I think the whole architecture of the Star Wars universe wouldn't be we wouldn't have a Skywalker saga, because kids wouldn't have believed, they wouldn't have dreamed like we did. So a lot of that just rests on his performance. And there's no special effects there. He's just telling a story.
It's amazing, because when you go back and watch that moment when he says Obi-Wan, and they just stay on his expression, you feel that he watched the prequels, he watched the Clone Wars, he watched everything, and obviously he didn't, but he, as you said, Michael, was such a phenomenal actor that he saw that before we did.
Yeah.
And to the Disney trilogy, I didn't know where it was going to go. That was kind of the excitement too. You had the excitement with the prequels being like, well, how far back are they going to go? We all thought about, like Alan mentioned, was the lava scene. We want to get to that lava scene and have him put on that helmet. And then the Disney one was like, well, where is this going to... I remember going to Force Awakens and remember thinking like, was Luke going to turn bad? Was it going to be this? Are we going to find him? So there was a lot of speculation, as there always is, you know what I mean? But I've said this before, when you stop to think, I can't think of another, I'll use the word franchise or IP, but where the backstory, George created such massive mythology. People criticize the prequels and stuff like that at times, but without them or with them, he planted so many seeds for books and comics and animated series and stuff, to the point where when I was writing Force Collector, I had to remind myself what was common knowledge and what was like deep-seated things between just the fans. Like in my mind, I had forgotten, even though I know these movies frontwards and backwards, in my mind, I had to remind myself that it was not common knowledge that the Emperor, that all the clones had this chip in them, that they could not resist Order 66. And I kept being like, oh, that came out in Jedi. And I was like, wait, I don't think it did come out in Jedi. Then you go back and realize, no, there's no mention of that. It's Clone Wars. It's comics. It's novels. But he created this massive world. And I can't think of another franchise that does such a great job in defining the very word saga. I mean, when I was a kid, I don't think I had heard saga before. I remember saying to my parents, what is this? And they said, well, it's going to go on and on. I was like, this is fantastic. Little did I know it would go on another 40 years.
Anything to add, Michael?
Yeah, I know. I mean, Kevin just said it. And in terms of ending the Skywalker saga, I was privileged to be able to read each script a little bit before the movie came out in order to write my books. So that was, it was a special treat. It's also a job too. You can't be a fan at that moment. You have to be a writer,
Right.
which is a different way to look at material. And then my challenge with the Rise of Skywalker Jr. novel was not only to tell the story in that book, but to wrap up the whole Skywalker saga in a way that you can only do in a book. And in a movie, JJ has to move the action. He has to keep moving the story. You can't bump or slow down to reference something that happened in the prequels or even the original trilogy. But in a book, you have the space for quiet moments where you can do that. And that was one of my challenges and something I really enjoyed doing in my novel. There are a lot of connections with the previous 8 stories to wrap the whole things up, the whole saga up. And of course, who knows, in 10 years, it'll probably continue. Who knows?
Well,
these things
that's
don't
the
seem
beauty
to have
of
an
it,
end.
Michael. No, and that's the beauty of it. Like, I created this, the current Spider-Man series on Disney XD is something that I created. And I love playing in that world too, because, when I was a kid, if Spider-Man, the Green Goblin, by the time I was reading comic books as a young kid, Harry Osborn, his best friend, was the Green Goblin. It was before that Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin, but they had kept him dead for decades. And then in the 90s, they brought him back. And it was like, oh my gosh. And it's in a similar way, they bring them back because they're interesting characters and we all relate to them. So is it the end? Who knows? There might be a Force ghost down the line. There might be some sort of Skywalker connection. You never know, because although at times I think, audiences get fatigued, or they think they get fatigued, or they want something new, I think they should get something new, but I think they'll always come back, because the Skywalker Saga is what introduced all of us to Star Wars, and that's where our hearts are. So I'm excited for new characters, but I'm always going to have a place for the old ones as well.
There's so much that's unexplored in these 9 films in the background, and some of the books that I always really kind of appreciated were the ones that went sort of far afield and took some of the characters who were seen but unknown in them. And like, there's some great books like Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina and Tales of the Republic and Tales of the Empire that gave you this insight into how everything in the galaxy worked, and that it wasn't just these are the movies, this narrow path that you walk. You could deviate from the path and see all of that kind of stuff. And that's what excites me about what you guys write and what you get to do. And in defense of young adult novels, it's one thing to read, the full-on heavy-duty paperback novelization of the film. The young adult novels have a tendency to distill things down more into emotional beats and less of descriptional beats, if that makes any sense at all. And I appreciate that because I come from like a Hardy Boys background. I'm reading Hardy Boys books and that kind of thing. And I appreciate that the young adult novels are there to give you like sort of the emotional impact of things without lots and lots and lots of description. And for my money, in a lot of cases, that is more in keeping with the Star Wars philosophy. And I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to write in that more distilled manner?
That's how I write, and so I fit very well with that. And I think that's a really nice way to put the difference between the two, the quote adult novels and the young adult, because we don't. Star Wars isn't about explaining things too much. It's not about info dumps or going too far into the background where you're telling everything. Star Wars is about little references that pop up that color the world, but the story just keeps going, and you need to follow these characters on their journey. And one of the things I did in my trilogy is I just focused mainly on the young heroes, with vignettes of the older characters too, when you got Han and Chewie and Luke and Leia. But I was able to do that and leave and kind of really get into their emotional journeys and kind of explore who they were as characters in a way that would, all ages will appreciate, in addition to kids. So it's another way of looking at the Skywalker Saga, or at least the sequel trilogy. And that's what I tried to do. And you can read the novel, you can read my book, and you can see the film, and you can have a completely different experience of the story.
But what's interesting? You talk about young adult, you talk about adult. The original Star Wars, A New Hope, is a young adult story. It's about a kid on a planet, a desert planet, and a princess. And, no one's going too far overboard to make it heavy or explain things that would exclude kids, So, and I know Michael did, and I try to do with mine, is you want to get back to that sense of wonder, that sense of, a Force collector. What I was able to do in a fun way for me was approach the whole Star Wars saga from someone who lives in that galaxy, but does not know, but has not seen the movies, as it were. I kept thinking when we watched Force Awakens and Rey says to Han, "Oh, the Jedi," we all thought they were myths. And I remember thinking, why this was one of your wars. Why is this not in textbooks? Why are they myths and not historical figures? And then I thought about our society, and I thought, look at any of our wars, World War II, anything. We all know who the players were and basically who won. But then you get stories like Dunkirk or Schindler's List or even Glory with the Civil War, and you realize there's so much information and stories that we don't know about a battle that turned the tide, about a commander who made some decisions. And I thought, well, what if this kid lived in the equivalent of an inner city school somewhere in that galaxy, and he knew of them but did not exactly know how the pieces fit together? And so he goes on this journey to try and piece together Star Wars. And Sean, to your point, what you said earlier, and part of the fun was getting to cross paths with lesser known characters from the other movies or cartoons or comic books, but also being able to re-explore. We started this conversation about what the Skywalker Saga meant to us when Star Wars began. I've said this before, but I remember about a month before the movie came out, obviously they had trailers or teasers on television, and they had just enough imagery to blow my mind, but I had to piece together what I was seeing. And I remember thinking, from what I saw, there was a bad guy in black who kidnapped a princess, and I thought he lived in a castle in the desert, and that desert was patrolled by sand people. And I assumed he won because that famous shot of Luke and Leia swinging across the chasm, I thought that was them swinging outside of the castle. So in many ways I was wrong, but in many ways I was right. And I thought I wanted someone in that world to have to also get back to the excitement of piecing Star Wars together. And I think whether you do a young adult or adult, it's still the excitement of rediscovering those characters, those planets, and those stories.
Yeah, and I think even as a kid buying the Kenner figures, they didn't say a lot of these characters' names in the originals. Right. That's what got them. That's when you started finding books and stuff, the backstories of every minor character. That was terrific.
Yeah, Walrus Man. I mean, I still call
him Baba. I know,
Walrus Man, Hammerhead.
I call him Walrus Man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why did Greedo get a name and nobody else?
I know, it's so funny.
And that Walrus Man segment on Robot Chicken was hilarious.
Oh my God.
So you talk about the lesser known characters. That's what we have fun doing on Robot Chicken, is either picking on the guy in the back that you're actually not seeing, or continuing a scene longer than the camera said cut. You know what I mean? And you see them go home again with Ponda Baba. He's an architect. He relies heavily on that arm. You know, all those things.
I love your hair. That's not what I said.
That's not what he's saying. It's funny.
Well, and there's a good example of being able to play in the Star Wars universe in an unusual way that sort of detours also does. So I do hope that does show up someday.
Yeah, you know, they were a lot of fun. I think, you know, there's a good chance they will with Disney Plus or who knows what. But we, you know, honestly, I had a great time making them. So that was my, you know, moment to have a good time with that. And I will always have that memory. I hope the world gets to see them as well sometime.
Nice. Let's see. We are at the 16-minute mark. We still have a little time. You want to take the next question, Alan?
Sure. Why do you think the Skywalker, the whole legacy, still resonates 40 plus years later, where something like Avatar, other franchises, they don't seem to have the pull? And I even see this at the library. We do a lot of programs, but the first year we did the Star Wars Day, the minute we put up just a little display with my old Star Wars action figures and stuff, the parents and kids were just drawn to it like a tractor beam, and just seeing that generational pull of the saga. Why do you think it continues to resonate from generation to generation?
Well, I think Michael kind of hit on it earlier. You know, it's not only are they interesting characters, but they're at its core, it's simple. It's simplistic. It's you know, it's the mythology. It's the rise and fall. It's the hero's journey. You know, no disrespect to Avatar, things like that, but you know, you get very heavy laden with what's happening here, and there are specifics and whatnot. But I think it's a simple story with characters you can relate to. And for me, I think that's what always resonated. And, you know, put it in whatever trilogy you want, original, prequel, Disney, you know, it all comes down to character. And, you know, the lasers, and that's what I even with my book, the fight scenes are great. The lightsabers are fantastic, but it's all icing on the cake. You know, at its core, I care about these characters and I want to see what happens to them.
Yeah, and I think, in addition to what Kevin's saying, I think it's Star Wars itself was just like, he just hit a grand slam. He just got it all at once. And he had, $10 million to make a movie. George Lucas, he didn't have all the money that maybe a major motion picture would have to make what he wanted, but he was able to figure it out by focusing on his characters and telling a great story, and then also getting the great composer of our day to write the greatest soundtrack in movie history, right?
Lightning in a bottle.
And, you know, if you take Alec Guinness's performance out, maybe the movie doesn't work. If you take the music out, the movie probably doesn't work. The editing, his editing of the X-Wing TIE Fighter, or the X-Wing Death Star trench run, you can, I mean, it's just fantastic. There is no better moment in cinema editing, at least in the 1970s, and all that stuff. He just nailed it. He got it all, you know, and that's why we're still talking about it. And I don't think any other franchise. I hate to even use the word franchise with Star Wars, because I don't think any other movie has done that. And it's one person's vision, and he got it through the system, and we're still just agog over it.
Yeah, agreed.
And that it was almost Flash Gordon instead, which is what he had really
Exactly.
wanted to make. And the original Flash Gordon story, which we eventually saw in the 1980 movie, yeah, okay, the Earth was in danger, but the big threat was that Ming the Merciless wanted to marry Dale Arden, and that was like, no, she's my girlfriend. How could you do? Which was a very sort of different morality than we got in Star Wars, and the threat level was completely different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as kids, I think when we saw this, it was presented to us in such a way that it was easy enough to recognize that, you know, this is what represents good in this galaxy. This is what represents evil in this galaxy. This is why you have to fight to stop it. And these are the stakes. And the stakes were enormously high. And that just, you felt invested in it, and you wanted to see the heroes triumph, and you wanted to see the farm boy, who we all kind of, identified with at the time. All my female friends identified with Han Solo for some reason, but we all identified with Luke. You wanted to see him win, and I did feel that way about this new sequel trilogy. I felt for Rey. I wanted to see Rey, overcome her circumstances and do good in the galaxy. And I think that's a running thread. I think that's the thing that keeps me coming back, is that they, be it Lucas or be it someone else, they keep presenting these situations for me where it's important that they triumph, and I want to see them do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I also think it's a testament to creating your own story. If George Lucas had done Flash Gordon, none of this would be.
Wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here. And so what it tells young people, a lot of them, how do I write Star Wars? What do I do to write Star Wars? I said, well, become a writer and write your own material first, and fall in love with that, and then you might, if you work hard enough, and if you continue to do what you want to do as a writer or whatever, you'll get the opportunity to write Star Wars, if that's your goal. But George Lucas he had to create Star Wars because he wasn't going to get Flash Gordon, and he worked. That script took him like 2 to 3 years to write, over and over again.
I think he had 4 revisions of it, and they got successively less complicated, thank goodness, because the original versions were just really out there. And I appreciate the world building that he did in them, but when he got to like version 4 of the script, it sort of made a lot of sense, whereas the other ones were really muddy. And that's
he was finding the story. Yeah.
Right. Well, and as writers, you guys have to do that.
At some point, what helped too was, I think it was Fox or whoever it was at the time, was like, stop sending us scripts. We can't keep reading these. Give us a summary. And I think it was during that summary that certain things gelled, or he was able to condense or make more, or streamline. Sometimes you need that. You need parameters. And I don't know, Alan, I don't know if the library has it, but those making of books, Star Wars and Empire and Return of the Jedi, they're worth their weight in gold. The stories and the drafts and what you hear that he went through, and to do all that, they're amazing reads.
I think J.W. Rinsler wrote those. Those were good.
Yeah. Could you imagine being a Fox executive and reading about the Dai Bendu and the Knights of Sith, and you're just like, what?
Star Killer, the Bendu Force. Oh my gosh! Just a weird aside. I had a neighbor who was in legal at Fox, and he used to sneak me onto the studio so I could go work on productions as a PA under the radar back when you could do such things in the 1980s. And I'd work on weird movies like, Johnny Dangerously and Buckaroo Banzai and things like that. But one day there was no production. I ended up in his office, and he trucked out all of these original scripts, everything from the legal department that they had related to Star Wars. And they were, memorandums going back and forth with ILM and with Fox and Alan Ladd and all of these people. And then there were the scripts, and the scripts, the first early editions of the scripts were just indecipherable.
Yeah.
And not the Star Wars that we love, but between George and his incredible team of people he put together to do the effects, and his team of editors, which included Marcia Lucas, those people made a story that really kind of came from their hearts, but hit ours too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one tidbit is Obi-Wan actually wasn't supposed to die in the original draft, and it was a suggestion as they were filming, you have to kill Obi-Wan. And
wasn't it from Alec Guinness who said, he's like, I have nothing to do for the rest of the movie. You should probably kill me.
The original
poignant.
The original novel actually has that scene still. Drafts of the novel has Obi-Wan living on, and he's down in the Yavin 4 base.
Right.
And that was a change to the novel too. So
that's really funny.
And there's a great set of the books of all the original Ralph McQuarrie artwork, which I heard really helped sell it to studios too. What's a Wookiee? What's a Jawa? And this collection of 2 books of every sketch he did for the Star Wars movies is just phenomenal collection.
Wow.
Well, you know, it's so funny when you talk about that, Obi-Wan and Alec Guinness and You Should Kill Me Off and stuff. Some of the great moments come out of whatever your situation is. You know, I still to this day get goosebumps whenever Obi-Wan says to Yoda, "That boy was our last hope," and he says, "No, there is another." And you hear the ship and it takes off, and it gives me goosebumps just saying it now. And then you read that, you know, Kasdan wanted to put that in because he wanted to keep the threat alive of that if, you know, Luke could die.
Right.
You know, he goes off and we could lose him, and there's another one. So don't think that this guy is safe and we know he's coming back. You know, and also they were always watching their backs in terms of, you know, who's going to come back. Is Harrison Ford going to come back? Let's freeze him in carbonite because he might not. We may not get through, you know, negotiations. So there's always like a backstory, but sometimes, not all the time, and sometimes it really works to the story's advantage.
Yeah. And who is that other? You know, is it Leia? Is it Rey?
Yeah.
Is it somebody else? You know, who knows?
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes fans want those questions answered, and they shouldn't be answered. Leave it up to
of course
to us. Yeah.
I think it's you, Michael.
I think it is.
I think he was referring to you.
Yes.
The other you are. We've got probably about another 10, 15 minutes to go. I wanted to make sure we mentioned this at the very beginning when we were running through bios and projects that you guys were working on. You guys had some kind of unusual left field projects that you brought up. You want to clue us in on what you can about those?
What did we bring up? I'm trying to remember now.
Michael had a game, I think, that you were working on.
I did. I wrote Jedi Challenges, which is really the first Star Wars augmented reality game. It came out about, I think, 2 years ago, and you bought it at Best Buy. I think you can still find it on Amazon, but you download the app onto your phone and you buy these goggles, and you put these goggles in front of your eyes. And you put your phone in the goggles and put the goggles in front of your eyes, and you have a Bluetooth lightsaber, and then you're in a Star Wars world where you have to you have lightsaber battles with Darth Maul, Darth Vader, you know, all these villains, and the Inquisitor. And so I wrote the story for that, which was really cool because people were living a Star Wars. They were having a Star Wars experience that was beyond the books or even the movies.
That's amazing.
It was a 360 experience. So
I remember this, and the thing that made it really novel, I don't remember if it was Logitech or who put this out.
Lenovo.
Lenovo, that was it. And so instead of being virtual reality, it was augmented reality, where you could still see your environment around you with these characters involved in it.
Yeah, they don't want anybody tripping over the couch when they're fighting with a lightsaber in the living room.
It was really kind of cool, and it's actually one of the games that's sort of on my list to pick up, and haven't quite done it yet. It came with a really nice lightsaber accessory to do it, and yeah, I always wanted to try it. I had no idea you were involved with that. That's tremendous.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to write that.
That's really cool.
And I'm also doing this a game for Amazon and Disney where it's Star Wars sound journeys for the Alexa, and I guess Echo Time is the software, and so it's a voice activated. It's basically a big trivia game.
Okay.
Where you have different levels of trivia, and you have to identify the sound, or you have to, you know, figure out who said what or which character. is the voice track too. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's fun to do.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel like we would be pretty good at that game.
Yeah. We'll come back and we'll play it on Zoom.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
That's cool. Oh, I just got a note that said they removed the 40-minute time limit on our group.
Look at that.
But we've kept you guys for a pretty long time. You guys, anything you guys want to do in closing?
Let's see, maybe some plugs. Let's see, you got I'm running a Spider-Man comic book series for Marvel that'll come out this year, hopefully sometime. Let's see, you can always follow me on @KevinShinick on either Twitter or Instagram or at kevinshinnick.com. What else? I'm just trying to get through the day.
Aren't we all?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what we all have in common now. The entire world, the entire world has this in common.
Yeah, it's surely a day by day life right
Absolutely.
Now. So, yeah,
absolutely. But you know what? It was very. I got very zen the other day, but I'm not sure if I said this to you already, Michael. But it was like we are living Groundhog Day. You know, our days are just becoming all the same because we can't go many places and things like that. And it just pointed out the ridiculousness of like, you know, one day I woke up and I was happy. One day I woke up and I was anxious. One day I woke up and I was worried. It's like, but nothing was changing externally. So it just brought forward that I was like, I'm the one who's bringing this up. So if I'm the one who's bringing it, why don't I just bring the joy all the time? And since then, I've just been very zen about this whole thing. So hopefully I'm not living in a bubble, but we'll get through this.
Of all the experiences I thought I might share with the world, and certainly Star Wars is one, where it's been all around the planet and we've all gone through these movies over the course of 40 years and they've had some impact on so many people that I met. What we're going through right now is an experience I never even imagined, to the point where I have a radio show I do in the morning on the internet that's a geek music radio show on a geek station that's been going for about 10 years. And every day when I get up and I do this radio show, I have to tell people what day it is because we're forgetting. It's like, okay, guys, today it's Wednesday, you know, and and people send me notes going, oh my God, I thought it was Tuesday. And, you know, because we're lost in our calendars because all our days are exactly the same.
I was shocked when I found out it was May.
Right? May the 4th.
You know, it's the weird thing is for writers, this experience is very we know this experience pretty well.
This is our life. They're all becoming writers now.
I've heard of a lost weekend, but lost months are really weird.
I know.
Yes.
I know. It's crazy. It really is.
That's pretty awesome. Well, oh my gosh, guys. As always, I really appreciate being able to talk with you. And you always have really good projects that you're working on, really awesome insights into a galaxy that we always like to play with. And I'm always grateful to Alan for letting me come and do this and play. You want to wrap us up, Alan?
Yeah. I want to thank all of our guests. And Sean, why don't you say the name of the station, how you can access it for people out there?
Oh, yeah, if you want to. So Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, I do a show that's called Good Morning Tatooine. And we play music from history. We play a lot of movie music, TV music, things like that. I look at people who are having birthdays, play music related to them. And that's the morning show. And then Thursday nights from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific time, we have a show called Docking Bay 94, which is all media stuff. We do it on Twitch and on Facebook and on YouTube and also on this KryptonRadio.com station where they broadcast geek stuff like 24/7. So I've been doing that for 8 years, and you know, we don't make any money, but we have a good time and we collect all the geeks in one place, and that's always.
Sean, how can I find it? It's on. Tell me how to get it again.
Yeah, just go to KryptonRadio.com. And that's the audio. The minute you load up the page, the radio will start playing, and you can get there. And then on the show for the audio, I always mention how to find us on on Twitch and on YouTube and all of these other things too. But the easiest way is just Krypton, like Superman, KryptonRadio.com. And it's a fun place to be, and that's why I've got my dorky little headset on here as I do this this show. We've been doing it forever, and it's a lot of fun, and we find our tribe that way. Lots of Star Wars fans goofing off, and I think I'm one of the people single-handedly keeping John Williams royalties going. It's either John Williams or Weird Al. Between the two of them, I'm like making sure.
Well, Sean, you have a great voice for radio, by the way. So it's,
thanks.
Yeah.
Well,
and
if you ever need a book on tape, just let me know.
I should plug the Rise of Skywalker junior novel. My last name is Kogge, Kogge, and you can find me on Twitter, Michael Kogge, Kogge, and also Empire of the Wolf, which is my graphic novel, ancient Roman werewolves. So if you're into that kind of thing, this is your comic book.
And who isn't really?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the Skywalker book is in trade paperback right now. Is that what you showed?
Yeah, it's in trade paperback. Okay. I think The Force Awakens came out in hardback. This one is just in trade paperback right now. And Kevin, do you have a paperback book edition or a hardback edition
of mine? You mean?
Yes.
No, it's just right now. It's just hardcover. It came out, like I said, in November last year, but you can still get them. Force Collector. Again, Kevin Shinick, and Shinick is Shinick, in case you're.
Okay. From myself and the city of Cucamonga and all our patrons, I want to thank Sean, Michael, and Kevin for all being here and helping us launch this together. And may the Force be with you all.
And also with you.
Thanks, guys.
Always.
Thanks.